You feel it before you can name it. Something shifts in the room, a sound you cannot place, a shadow at the edge of your vision, and for a fraction of a second, before your rational mind catches up, something ancient inside you snaps awake. Your chest tightens, your eyes widen, every hair on your arm stands up, and then you realize it was just the wind, just your cat, just a notification on your phone. You laugh it off. But here is the part nobody tells you. Your brain was not malfunctioning in that moment. It was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was saving your life. It just had no way of knowing that you were sitting in your living room in the 21st century and not crouching in tall grass 2 million years ago with something enormous hunting you in the dark. That gap between the world your brain was built for and the world you actually live in is one of the most important ideas in all of modern science. And once you understand it, you will never look at your own anxiety, your fear of silence, your compulsive need to check behind you the same way again. Your brain is not broken. It is ancient, and it is doing its job almost perfectly. To understand why, you have to go back, not a few hundred years, not to ancient Rome or medieval Europe. You have to go back roughly 2 million years, to the African savanna, to the world your nervous system was actually wired to survive. That world had grass that could hide a leopard at 5 feet. It had darkness that swallowed everything after sunset. It had predators that were faster than you, stronger than you, and had been hunting prey like you for tens of millions of years longer than your species had existed. In that world, the humans who survived were not the most intelligent, not the strongest, not even the fastest. They were the ones who were the most vigilant, the ones whose nervous systems were biased, hardwired by millions of years of selection pressure, toward detecting threat, toward assuming the worst, toward treating every rustle in the grass as a predator until proven otherwise. Scientists call this threat detection bias. Evolutionary psychologist Randolph Nesse, one of the founders of evolutionary medicine, has spent decades studying why anxiety exists at all. His answer is this: anxiety is not a flaw in your design. It is the price of staying alive in a world that wanted to eat you. Think about the math for a moment. Imagine your ancestor on that savanna. She hears a sound in the grass. She has 2 possible responses. She can assume it is a predator, stop what she is doing, go tense, prepare to run. Or she can assume it is nothing and keep gathering food. If she assumes predator and she is wrong, she loses a few seconds and a handful of calories. That is all. If she assumes nothing and she is wrong, she dies. And every one of her potential descendants, every person who could have carried her genes forward, dies with her. Natural selection does not care about accuracy. It cares about survival. And so it built a brain that is spectacularly, almost recklessly, biased toward false alarms. Better to flinch 1,000 times at shadows than to fail to flinch once at something real. The neuroscientist Joseph Leduc spent years mapping exactly how this works inside your skull. What he found was startling. Your brain does not process threat the way you think it does. You do not see a threat, think about it, analyze it, and then feel afraid. Fear arrives before thought. It happens in a structure called the amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons buried deep in your brain, older than language, older than complex reasoning, older than almost everything that you would call human. The amygdala gets a signal from your senses before it reaches your conscious mind. It fires before you know what you are afraid of. Ledox called this the low road, a shortcut that bypasses your rational prefrontal cortex entirely and launches a threat response in milliseconds. By the time you consciously register the shadow at the edge of the room, your heart is already beating faster, your pupils are already dilated, stress hormones are already flooding your bloodstream. Your rational brain did not cause that. It arrived late to a party that your ancient brain had already started. And here is where it gets fascinating. The amygdala does not distinguish between a physical predator and a social threat. It does not know the difference between a leopard in the grass and a passive, aggressive email from your boss. It cannot tell the gap between a rustle in the dark and silence on a phone call that used to be warm. It responds to pattern, to anything that has ever, in the long history of human experience, meant danger. This is what psychologists call the smoke detector principle. A smoke detector in your house goes off when there is real fire, yes. But it also goes off when you burn toast. It is calibrated not to miss a real fire, not to be right every time, and your amygdala is the same. It is not trying to be accurate. It is trying to never miss a real threat, even if that means triggering on 10,000 things that are harmless. Social rejection triggers it. Public speaking triggers it. Darkness triggers it. Silence triggers it. A sudden sound triggers it. Even another person's angry face, seen for just 33 milliseconds, too fast for you to consciously register it, still triggers it. Researchers at the University of New South Wales demonstrated this using a technique called backward masking, flashing angry faces for less than a 50th of a second before immediately covering them with a neutral image. The subjects had no idea they had seen anything threatening, but their amygdalas had fired. Their bodies had responded. You cannot see the threat. Your body already knows. This is not a minor personality quirk. This is the central organizing principle of your nervous system. Everything about your brain's threat response was calibrated for a world your body has not lived in for tens of thousands of years. The same mechanism that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah is now running in the background of your morning commute. Your performance review. Your social media feed, which, if you step back and think about it for one moment, is an almost perfectly engineered environment for triggering the same patterns your ancient brain learned to interpret as social threat, rejection, comparison, status loss, exclusion. Psychologist Mark Schaller at the University of British Columbia has studied what he calls the behavioral immune system, the cluster of threat detection instincts that goes beyond predators, extending to anything that could harm your survival or your standing in a social group. His research shows that humans are just as primed to detect social threats as physical ones. Because in the deep past of your species, being cast out of the group was not an emotional inconvenience. It was a death sentence. You could not survive alone on the savannah. You could not hunt big animals alone. You could not watch for predators alone. The group was survival. And so your brain learned to monitor your social status with the same obsessive vigilance it used to monitor the perimeter of the camp for movement in the dark. That is why criticism feels like a physical blow. That is why social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA spent years scanning the brains of people who had just been socially excluded in an online game. The region that lit up was not the emotional center of the brain. It was the anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes physical pain. Your brain does not care whether the danger is a leopard or a cold shoulder. It responds to threat, and it was built to respond fast, hard, and relentlessly. So what do you do with this? Now that you know the machinery, now that you can see the ancient wiring running underneath every anxious thought you have ever had, what do you actually do? The first thing is recognition. The moment you feel that familiar surge, the tightening in your chest, the loop of catastrophic thinking, the sudden certainty that something is wrong, you can now name what is happening. Your smoke detector is firing. Your amygdala got a signal before your rational brain could weigh in. That does not make the feeling less real. It makes it less authoritative. There is a technique that therapists working in the tradition of what is called cognitive diffusion have studied for years. It is simple and it is strange and it works. When the threat response fires, you do not fight it. You do not tell yourself to calm down. You simply observe it. You say to yourself, my ancient brain thinks I am being hunted right now, and you let it pass. Because here's the thing. The threat response was built to be fast. It was not built to be long. On the savannah, you either ran or you did not. The predator either came or it did not. And within minutes, the hormones cleared, the muscles relaxed, and life continued. The response was acute, not chronic. The problem is not that your brain fires threat alerts. The problem is that modern life gives it threats that never resolve. A predator either catches you or it does not, but a hostile workplace does not go away. A fragile relationship does not go away. An uncertain future does not go away. And so the ancient alarm keeps ringing, not because something is wrong with you, because the environment you live in was not the one your alarm system was built for. Randolph Nesse calls this the mismatch problem, the gap between the ancestral environment your brain evolved in and the modern environment you actually inhabit. Almost every feature of modern anxiety traces back to this gap. Your brain is working perfectly. The world has just changed faster than evolution can keep up with. And so tonight, when you lie in the dark and something in the silence makes you uneasy, when the shadows feel like they are watching, when your chest tightens and your mind reaches for something to be afraid of, you will know what is happening. You are not anxious. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are a savanna animal in a lit room. Your ancient brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is scanning the perimeter. It is keeping you alive. It just does not know yet that there is nothing out there. And maybe that is the strangest thing of all 2 million years of survival. of vigilance, of never once letting its guard down. And it brought you here, to this room, to this moment, safe and breathing and alive. The same brain that kept you alive in the dark is the one that cannot stop checking behind you in the light.